ABC News.
I'm Dr. Red in Cache Valley. Some of my patients here have questions about the COVID-19 vaccine. The vaccines were developed quickly and safely because they cut red tape, not corners. The vaccines are extremely effective and will protect you and your loved ones. More than 1 million Utahns have been vaccinated, and I encourage you to get the vaccine too. Talk to your doctor if you have any questions.
Hey, it's Al Lewis. Happy spring. I love this beautiful weather, but if you struggle with CPAP, you may not be getting the sleep you need to go outside and enjoy it. Fortunately, now there's Inspire, a sleep apnea treatment that works inside your body with just the click of a remote. That's right, a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Learn more at inspiresleep.com. Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you, and review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
Bringing the governor inside your homes, hitting the issues that matter most to you. This is Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox on stations throughout the state in partnership with the Utah Broadcasters Association.
Welcome to Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox. I am Jason Williams of KVNU Logan. I'll be moderating tonight's event, but this is a caller-driven event. We encourage everyone to join us if you have a question for the governor. Toll free, 855-399-6800. Again, 855-399-6800, the toll free number for tonight's event. Again, Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox. And let me take just a moment to say this is an honor to be hosting this event here at the KVNU studios this month, because it is something new to Utah, very welcome to Utah, bringing this to rural areas throughout the state, rotating through rural areas in the state. It's very nice to have this happening. So thank you to Governor Cox and the Utah Broadcasters Association for coordinating all of this. And again, for callers, if you'd like to join us, toll free, 855-399-6800. Governor Cox, welcome.
Jason, it is so good to be back with you again. It's been a while, and it's fun to do these. As a rural guy, I do believe it's important, and it's been a long time since governors have done something like this. I think this is our second one now, and we look forward to many in the future. Sure.
And again, an opportunity for listeners to directly interact with you live here on air. So please, everyone, take advantage. One more time, the toll-free number, 855-399-6800. Governor, we do have a caller on the line, and the question relates to something you actually spent some time on today in a press conference, the drought hitting Utah. Earlier today, you had said that this, from what we're seeing so far, very early on in the summer, looks to be the worst drought Utah has seen since 1956. Could you expand on that a bit?
Sure. Yeah. So depending on what metrics you use, it's either the second worst drought in recorded history in our state or the worst drought in recorded history in our state, judging by some of the time frames. And I just don't think people understand really how bad it is unless you're maybe a farmer. Those of us that deal with these issues every day. I can tell you at my house and on my farm, I've got about 35 acres that we didn't even put water on this year. And right now it looks like our secondary water, our agriculture water will be gone by the 1st of July, which is the earliest that any of us can remember. Every place in Utah is under drought conditions right now. There's a drought monitor. There are different levels of drought. We are 90% of the state is in extreme drought. And you think that would be the worst. It's not. There's one more stage above that, exceptional drought. And about 80% of the state, 70 to 80% of the state is in exceptional drought right now. So really serious conditions, and a call for all of us. We need everyone to conserve regardless of where you live. Today, we were asking people to water their lawns less. The good news with grass is that it's very resilient. If it turns yellow or brown, that's okay. It will come back green. And next year, we're encouraging people to do one less watering. So just 2 waterings a week in northern Utah, 3 waterings a week in southern Utah, and then to pay attention to local water districts and the restrictions that are in place there. But this really is dire. Look, this is not hyperbole. The last thing that I need or that the state needs is another disaster to worry about, having earthquakes and pandemics last year, and now dealing with extreme drought conditions. And so we just really encourage people to be smart. And along with that comes the fire danger. And we've had 2 fire starts today, one in Summit County, one in Carbon County. And our fire, so again, two different parts of the state, but our fire crews reported back that they are seeing August-like conditions, and we're still in the first part of June. That's a problem. That does not bode well for us. We need rain desperately, and so this past weekend I asked the state to join in prayer. Fortunately, we did get some rainstorms over the weekend, but we need a lot more, and we would encourage people to keep those prayers coming and then do their part to conserve.
Along those lines, Governor, our first caller tonight is actually James from the Provo area. And James has a question about that. If the water does come, what then? James, go ahead.
Well, good evening, Governor Cox. Anyhow, basically, I just wanted to kind of dovetail onto that theme of the drought along the lines of if additional water does come, and I'm praying a drought subsides. I have relatives around the Lake Powell area, and I'm just wondering, is there a way to, it sounds hokey, but kind of dredge Lake Powell or even ponds to try to deepen it to where hopefully, God willing, we'll have more water and conserve it for future years to where we won't encounter such extreme drought conditions. Is there any infrastructure that can be done now to kind of help in future years? That's my question.
James, thank you for that question. It's not hokey at all. The answer is yes, that there are things we can do. We actually, before we even knew we were going to be in this extreme of drought, I had asked our team to start putting together a long-term plan. So there's the short-term stuff that we can do right now, and then we're looking at the long-term stuff so that for future years we can avoid this, as we are the fastest-growing state in the nation. And we're going to be putting out over the next few months some big ideas there. One of those is to increase storage capacity in the state. So there's a couple ways we can do that. As you mentioned, the potential to dredge or deepen our reservoirs where possible. We will have for sure 3 reservoirs that go completely dry this year. And it's looking, again, unless we get enormous rainstorms over the next couple of weeks. Most of those are on the Sevier River in that area, Otter Creek and Yuba and Cusharam reservoirs will likely go dry. So an opportunity there to dredge out the silt and the material that has gotten into them. Certainly we'll be looking at that in other areas as well. And then looking at new storage capacity, above ground storage capacity. I've got to hand it to the people that came here, that settled these valleys and these mountains. They understood the importance of reservoirs and storage, and that's why we're the beneficiaries of that today. And it's time for us to do that to the next generation. But there's another place that we can store water, and that's in underground storage. Of course, we have enormous underground storage. The water tables are lowering because we're using more and more of that water. We need to replenish that water as well. So there's some great projects in the state. Iron County has been really good at recharging their underground storage, and that is putting water, when we have high runoff, putting that water back into the ground so we have it, we can pull it up. The nice thing about underground storage is that it doesn't evaporate. And so it's actually better storage underground than it is above ground. But we need all of the above, and our administration is going to be working very closely with local governments, local water districts to improve and enhance storage capacity in the state.
Thank you again, James. That was a great question, and obviously something that is on everyone's mind now. Drought, wildfire, all of this so early in the summer. I'm sure this is a topic we may be getting back to in the hour. Right now, though, second caller for our event here, direct link with Governor Cox, is Russell from Syracuse. For those who would like to join, again, the toll-free number, 855-399-6800. Russell from Syracuse now with a question, Governor, about the Second Amendment.
Hello, Governor Cox. Thank you for having this forum. Thank you for the opportunity to ask you questions. My question has to do with, would you consider Second Amendment sanctuary legislation for the state of Utah? And basically, I don't know if you saw the conversation that Mr. Chipman, who was President Biden's appointee for the ATF, in front of Congress, was pretty sad that he wanted to basically confiscate anything larger than a .22 caliber. And I wanted to know if you'd be willing to sign legislation that would push back against the federal government and basically not allow our state agencies to coordinate with federal agencies, efforts to confiscate weapons. And I wanted to know if you'd be willing to do that.
Thank you, Russell.
Thanks, Russell. Yeah, thank you for the question. It's nice to hear from our friends up in Syracuse. Well, I'll be up there on Saturday, actually, for a big groundbreaking. So the answer is yes. And let me just share a little bit more about this. So I signed the constitutional carry bill, something that I know a lot of people have been working on for a long time. And I've said this before, but I believe that Utah isn't just a Second Amendment sanctuary state, but we're a constitutional sanctuary state. And I meet at least once a month with Attorney General Sean Reyes, and we go over everything that is happening with the federal government to push back on things that we believe are unconstitutional. Now, there's the way we do that, and the constitutional way we do that is we file lawsuits, and then the courts determine whether our interpretation of the Constitution is correct or the federal government's interpretation of the Constitution is correct. We have a Supreme Court, if we're willing to take those cases to the Supreme Court to get those things overturned. The Second Amendment sanctuary state bills are mostly message bills. They don't have a huge practical impact. People think they have more teeth than they really do. But that being said, sometimes it's important to send a message. And I am very concerned about some of the things I heard in that interview that you talked about, and those are not things that I believe in. And so I don't think a special session is the time for those types of bills. We've never done those types of bills in the past. But I do know that in January, when the session starts, that is a bill that will be coming. And if that bill passes, then I would sign it. But more importantly, and I want people to know this, because the thing that matters the most is our ability to really push back legally against the federal government. And we will be doing that.
Thank you for the question, Russell. And for listeners out there, again, this is an open forum for anyone, regardless of where you're listening from. Please give us a call, toll free, 855-399-6800. This is Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox, produced in coordination with Utah Broadcasters Association. We're honored to be hosting the event this month here at KVNU. For listeners, again, I am Jason Williams, Governor Cox joining us as well. And your questions are welcome. Governor, just a couple of minutes before we get to the break, our first break, and we do have more callers lining up. But let me ask you, with just 2 minutes before that break here, about recent developments on the lines, along the lines of the drought, going back to that. You had mentioned that here in the state, agriculture was going to be a big part of this. And the technology around this, you said, is changing quite a bit. You have experience with this personally and on your family farm. How has that technology changed?
Well, there's lots of ways. Of course, when I was a little boy, we were still flood irrigating, and of course we're not flood irrigating anymore. We moved to pressurized irrigation systems. But the big advancement that we've seen since then is these pivot that they put on their farms. These pivot systems that water closer to the ground. They move. They're much more efficient, significantly more efficient than even the hand lines and the wheel lines that we still have on my farm. And farmers have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in these new technologies. There's even more new technology that uses a fraction of the water. And there are a few dairy farms that are trying this out. It's actually the feed is grown inside. It uses it grows under lights inside and uses just a fraction, as little as 5% of the water that you would normally use The Bateman Dairy Farm is using this. It's called Grove Technology. It's coming out of New Skin, a subsidiary of New Skin. And it's just fascinating to see where that kind of technology is growing. So with all of these big problems that we have, innovation is the way out of this. Regulation never solves the problem, but innovation does. And we've seen that over the course of human history, and we'll see it again here.
Appreciate you spending some time on that and every question we've gotten so far. Also, thanks to listeners for supplying the questions tonight. Coming up on the other side of the break, we have Tommy from Cedar City. We have Rob from right here in Cache County. And again, for listeners, you are hearing here on KVNU Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox. This is being broadcast statewide in rural areas with a focus on rural discussions and topics. Please join us toll-free, 855-399-6800, and we'll be back right after this.
Planet Aquarium takes us outside our everyday lives into a world of discovery. It's a chance to explore our innate curiosity, discover animals from around the world, and experience the all-new outdoor plaza and eco. More to explore at Loveland Living Planet Aquarium. Reserve your visit at thelivingplanet.com.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Wednesday on This Morning, America's First News. Inside D.C. politics, how one Democratic senator toes the line in a deep red state. Also, Vice President Kamala Harris's visit to Mexico to discuss the migrant crisis at the southern border. Plus, Amazon is out with a new service that shares your internet connection with neighbors. What's that mean for privacy? And 4 ways to beat inflation. Wednesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Do you ever lose your balance or feel dizzy for no apparent reason? Do you hear ringing in your ears or have migraines? Well, you're not alone. 1 in 5 Americans will experience these symptoms, which could be signs you have a problem with your inner ear or vestibular system. Because these symptoms are invisible and hard to describe, they are often overlooked by doctors and dismissed by family and friends. We can help. Call the Vestibular Disorders Helpline at 800-837-8428. That's 800-837-8428. Or visit us online at liferebalanced.org. Sponsored by the Vestibular Disorders Association.
Moving and eating better every day can help make you and your kids healthier. Search We Can online to find out more. A message from the Ad Council, HHS, and NIH's We Can program.
Local news and the best talk. News Talk KVNU.
Welcome back to Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox. Produced in coordination with Utah Broadcasters Association. This is going out throughout Utah with a focus on rural issues and topics, and we invite everyone to join us toll-free, 855-399-6800. I'm Jason Williams of KVNU Logan, honored to be moderating tonight's event, and Governor Cox here with us now again. That toll-free number, 855-399-6800. And Governor, welcome back. We do have a few callers on the line here, ready with the next questions. First up for this segment is Tommy from Cedar City with a question about controlling growth and home costs. In fact, a report today showing home costs in Utah from the Kempsey Gardner Institute up 30% from just last year at this time. Tommy from Cedar City would like to know if you have any ideas on tackling that.
Hey, Governor, it's great to talk to you. I appreciate it, and I am actually a voter of yours. I respect for what you've done in the past. But my biggest concern, and we're actually seeing it in southern Utah here between Cedar City and also St. George, that we are actually seeing issues to the point where those who actually live here locally are having a very difficult time to be able to maintain a decent rent if they're renting, or else even purchasing. I'm in the market of purchasing, and I start to realize I'm not going to be a homeowner for a while until I actually see some changes happening where individuals are coming from outside the state and literally buying these properties to the point where if you're not bidding well over 30% more of what that home is on the market for, you're not going to see an opportunity to purchase it. And so I do have some concerns. What is the state doing that? And we talk about water issues, and here we have such a huge growth down here in southern Utah. It almost adds more to the water shortage. Those are my big concerns I have.
No, you're absolutely right, Tommy, and thank you for the call and thank you for your support. So this is one of the issues that I am most concerned about. And you actually talked about two issues. So one is, can we limit growth? And then the second one is, how do we reduce the cost of housing? And unfortunately, those two things are diametrically opposed to each other. So just briefly, I think it's important to note that one, we can't limit people from moving here. If I could build a wall around Utah and just keep us here and others from moving in, I would do that. But obviously we can't do that, and that violates the Constitution. But here's the problem: as soon as you limit growth and you stop growth, what happens, and this is true in California, and you can see this. San Francisco is a great example of this. The minute you limit growth at all, and you do that by limiting building, right? You could say, for example, we don't have enough water, and some communities have had to do this. If you don't have enough water for growth, then you can't give out building permits. But what immediately happens then is the price of housing skyrockets in that area because there's no new supply coming on. So that's the first part. So the second part of this, though, I think is really critical. It's what can we do to lower that price and still maintain our quality of life, which is what people want. And by the way, although a lot of people are moving in, our biggest growth by far is still internal growth. So it's still our kids and grandkids that want to live here and want to stay here. That's where most of our growth by far comes from. It's not people moving in, although there are a lot more people moving in, and that's the price we pay. We are the fastest growing state, so it's not just southern Utah. It used to be just southern Utah, but now it's everywhere. That growth is everywhere. We have been the fastest growing state over the past 10 years. And so really there are three things that we can do to reduce the price of housing. One is to make the way we build a house cheaper. And there's a lot of innovation happening in that space. Government doesn't play a big role in that, but it is important. The second way is the way we finance houses. And there hasn't been a lot of innovation in finance, although we're seeing a little bit more of that, making it easier for people to purchase houses and do things differently. But the third one that drives up the cost of housing has to do with government regulations. We impact the supply. If we want to lower, I mean, this is basic economics. If we want to lower the cost of housing in the state of Utah, we need more housing. And there's a couple ways to do that, right? And so when government puts regulations on housing, it increases the cost of housing and decreases the amount of people who can afford a house. And so we've been reviewing that at the state level. We made some changes in this past session and in the special session. We decreased the ability for local governments to regulate housing in some ways that would increase the cost of housing. Another thing that we've done is in this past session was to we removed restrictions. A lot of communities had restrictions on mother-in-law apartments, the accessory dwellings, and we took those away. So now removing those, that means that people can rent out their basements, which increases the amount of housing available. More places to rent will inevitably lower the price of renting and the price of housing. There's a trickle-down effect that happens when we remove some of those barriers. We are constantly looking for new ways to improve that. The other piece of this is to allow for more density. Right? Allow for more density, but you don't want density everywhere because that can lower the standard of living. And you have to put density in places where we have infrastructure. So density around places where we have mass transit, like track stations, that makes a lot of sense. We can do that without lowering the quality of life for people here in the state of Utah. We just have to be smart about it. We have to plan better and work together with our local cities. We also added a planning function in the governor's office of now planning and budget, into my budget office, that can work with local governments who don't have the staff necessary to help with the crazy growth that's happening in their areas. And so we're trying to help them, give them the resources we need. But all of that being said, this is happening throughout the country, especially the West. We're not alone. A lot of states are having this explosive growth. People realize they don't like living in some of the other states where their taxes are really high and they don't have the same freedoms that we enjoy here in the state of Utah. And they want to come here and they want to have what we enjoy and they want to raise their kids here. And so we do know, though, that inflation is happening because the federal government is spending so much money. And I do believe that there will be a rebalancing over the next year, and we'll get back in line. That 30% growth that we're seeing is unsustainable. We'll get closer, but it's going to be a struggle, and we'll continue to look for ways to remove those barriers to lower the cost of housing.
Great question, Tommy. Appreciate that. Next up, Governor, a caller from Cache County here in our own neighborhood with a question about unemployment and small business. Unemployment pretty low in Utah, even at some of the worst times of the pandemic in relation to the rest of the country, but it's still out there. There are some struggles for small businesses as we round that corner out of the pandemic. Rob, go ahead with your question for Governor Spencer Cox.
Hey there. First off, I want to say it's an honor, Jason and Governor Cox, for having me on here. First, my main question is, I manage a very small business here in Cache County, and my question is, what can we do in a small business level to help the unemployment rate in our state, not just in Cache County, and the increase in demand and competition for the few people that are working, as I see minimum starting pay at all the business around me just keep rising and rising and rising. And I feel like my small business is having a hard time keeping up with that, especially against the big corporate stores, all the big names that are around me as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, Rob. And we love our small businesses. As somebody who ran a small business as well, I know what it's like and how challenging it can be just to make payroll and to make things go. But really, small business is the heart of our economic engine. And you bring up a really good question. Again, the good news from an economic standpoint is that unemployment is low in Utah. In fact, the lowest in the nation. We're at 2.8%. That's just incredible. Coming out, by the way, heading into the pandemic, we were at 2.7%. We were one of only 2 states that saw positive job growth over the past year. And the truth is, in Cache County, you guys have always been below even the state unemployment average. It's always so impressive up there, which is great news if you're looking for a job, not great news if you're looking for employees, right? That's the problem you're facing. Now, I made a decision over the past few weeks that I think was really important. We had the federal government put into place these unemployment extensions and unemployment increases. So the amount that we're paying for people who are unemployed. And that was really important during the pandemic when so many places were shut down. However, because Utah is now back, we're fully open. We're one of the first states to be fully open, one of the first states to be at full employment. I just felt like it was unconscionable to continue with those pandemic-related unemployment extensions because there are jobs available now, and at places like yours. Look, we have on the low end 50,000 jobs, and on the high estimate end 70,000 jobs available right now in the state of Utah. Tens of thousands of them that pay more than $30 an hour, and so there are, for everybody on an unemployment extension, pandemic extension, there's about 14,000 people there. I mean, we have 5 jobs available for every one of them, and while I believe in free markets and employers should compete for employees. That's part of the free market, and that may mean that unfortunately, for you, but good for employees, that you may have to pay more, and that's going to cause an increase in prices. However, you should not have to compete with the government for those employees to pay people to not work. That's a problem. And so we're ending those. We have to give 30 days notice, which makes sense. And so over the next 2 weeks, that unemployment extension will be ending, and hopefully people will go out and find great jobs like the jobs that you're offering right now. And that's all we can do. I mean, the other way to do this, again, this is a supply and demand issue with people, right? We just need more people. And there's a couple ways we can get more people. One is to bring them in from other states, which is a concern because, as we already mentioned, the price of housing is so expensive. We can bring in people from other countries who are willing to do this work, and that's another issue. But really, we should fix legal immigration. That's an answer that both Republicans and Democrats can agree on. But we can also have kids, right? And Utah's better at that than any other state. We have lots of kids, which means future workers. The problem is that we're having less kids than ever before. Even here in the state of Utah, we're below replacement rates. So those are some of the challenges that we will have going forward. But I certainly hope that those 14,000 people that will be coming off their unemployment benefits over the next 2 weeks will help in the job market right now.
Thank you. Great question. Great answer. Governor Cox joining us again for Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox. This is produced in coordination with Utah Broadcasters Association, local stations throughout the state, an opportunity to focus on rural issues, rural questions. Please join us. Toll free 855-399-6800. We have a brief 4-minute break to get to here. On the other side of that, though, we have Fred from Cottonwood Heights, David from Magna, Larry from Far West, and Jeff from St. George joining us. Stay tuned. We'll be back with Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox right after this.
Good evening. I'm Bill Walter, KVNU News. The total list of Utah's COVID fatalities grew to 2,136 today, according to the Utah Department of Health report. There were 3 coronavirus deaths added. There were also 252 new coronavirus cases in Utah since Monday, including 11 new cases in the Bear River Health District. From the start of the pandemic, there have been 408,068 coronavirus cases in Utah. In Cache, Box Elder, and Rich counties, 21,732 of the 22,025 total cases have been declared recovered. There have been 7,101 vaccine doses administered statewide in Utah since Monday. Total doses during the pandemic has reached more than 2.65 million. Authorities in Utah say 3 people have died in a fiery multi-vehicle car crash on a highway near the Heber Valley Airport. Fox 13 reported that investigators with the Utah Highway Patrol said they believe a Jeep traveling on the highway slowed down and was rear-ended by a truck, causing the Jeep to catch fire, travel into oncoming traffic, and crash into an oncoming vehicle. The other vehicle became engulfed in flames as well. Authorities say 3 people died, but they have not been identified. Police said U.S. Route 189 was closed for several hours as a result of the collision. Mostly clear, cooler, low in the lower 50s. Southeast winds 10 to 20 miles an hour tonight. Sunny to partly cloudy tomorrow. Winds out of the southwest 10 to 20 and the high around 90. For the latest news, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology is Cache Valley's most trusted name in hearing aid technology. Schedule a free consultation with Dr. Paul Danes by calling 753-HEAR or visit CacheHearing.com.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
He's cared and watched out for you your entire life. Even taught you how to catch a fish and swing a bat. But now that he's in his senior years, it's your turn to care for Dad. Giving your aging loved one the attention he or she needs can be challenging, which is why there's Legacy House of Logan. From bathing and dressing to help with medicine, cooking, and housekeeping, Legacy House of Logan is your extra set of hands with an extra gentle touch on 1400 North in Logan and online at legacylogan.com.
No word in the English language is less convincing than probably.
Are you sure we should get matching tattoos on our first date?
Sure. We'll probably stay together.
Probably? It's been 23 minutes since I ate. I can probably swim.
You should wait 30 minutes.
Okay, now tell me what to do. Cannonball! Cramp! Oh, I have a cramp.
I can probably hit the green from here.
Probably.
Can I get a mulligan?
Ready to go?
Hey, are you sure you're okay to drive?
Yeah, I'm pretty sober. Yeah, I'm probably okay.
Probably okay isn't okay, especially when it comes to drinking and driving. If you're drinking, call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
News Talk KVNU, 610 AM at 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox, produced in association with Utah Broadcasters Association and local stations throughout the state. An opportunity to focus on rural issues with rural questions. We have callers lining up left and right here, which is great to see. So Governor will jump right back into it here with our questions from callers. And first up is Fred from Cottonwood Heights, who has a question back to the drought again about golf courses and reusing water. Fred, go ahead.
Oh, thank you for taking my call. Isn't technology amazing? My question is, it's both for the governor and the state water engineer, and ask them, does it make any sense to take water that is potable and put it on our golf courses, our campuses, and our parks when we have and this is just one treatment plant, think of all the treatment plants, 55 million gallons of water a day going down the Jordan River, and that water is cleaner by EPA discharge permit regulations than the irrigation water and the funny striped hoses in Weber County. I think we can do a better job in water reuse. I don't think, here we are, the second driest state in the union, and I don't see big programs in place for water reuse. And I use the example to whoever picked up my phone. We could look at the Riverwalk in San Antonio, Texas, on how they're using water and water reuse. And being the second driest state of the union, I think we can do a better job. And by the way, one other thought just comes through my mind. We should not let the constant scalping of water on our major rivers or streams coming down our 7 canyons in the Salt Lake Valley have the scalping of the water and wonder why our Great Salt Lake is drying up. These are just some things to consider. We might could do a better job with water reuse.
Fred, thank you so much. And your comment was very insightful. And the answer is yes. And this is something we've been working on with several water districts, and we need to do much more of it. So depending on location and local water supply and conditions, we do have several golf courses that use secondary or reuse water in Utah and Washington counties, for example. And so, as you mentioned, potable water is treated to a higher standard and is more expensive. So if they have an option to use secondary or reuse water, they do. So your question begs the question is, how do we make it more available to them? Because in most cases they would absolutely love to use it. I will say though, to your point about the Great Salt Lake, that even though that water is going down to the Jordan River, it's also entering into the Great Salt Lake, which of course has its benefits, and that's another ecological issue that we're very concerned about. But your ideas around reuse, we've been meeting with water districts to get more of that discharge used and reused on golf courses. We've actually had some questions too. I noticed in the chat about the NSA and the water that the NSA uses, which those types of data centers do use an enormous amount of water. That's one area where we are seeing reuse. The water that goes, it's recycled through the facility multiple times, and then it's discharged into parks in Draper and used in parks in that area. So that's the type of innovation that we need with all water users, so that we get to recycle that water, reuse that water, and then get the benefits multiple times. And you will see more of that over the coming months and years.
Thank you again to Fred, and the governor doubling his own productivity here. We covered 2 callers there. David, an answer to your question there from the governor, and appreciate you calling in with that question. Again, David from Magna with that question about NSA, following Fred from Cottonwood Heights there. So we'll jump ahead a bit here. The next caller for you, Governor Cox, is Larry from Far West. He has a question about water waste from reservoirs, specifically Pineview and Willard Bay. And go ahead, Larry.
Yes, good to talk to you. We, as neighbors, we stand around and analyze everything and maybe don't have all the facts, but I did call the Pineview people today because their rumor out here now is that they're going to shut off water on August 1st, and I called to verify that, and it's not set in stone, but that's kind of what we're facing. And in Far West, where we live, we cross a canal that's about 15 feet, maybe deeper, 40 feet wide, and it's about 2 feet from going over the edge, and it dumps into Willard Bay. And the question we have is, why is that headed that way and they're not backing it up in a reservoir? I'll hang up and let you tell me.
Well, thank you so much for the call, Larry, and you're my kind of people. That's what we do. We stand on the porch and solve all the world's problems, and I'm glad that you're helping out here. So I appreciate that, and let me tell you what little I know, and I'm happy to do more research on this. But this may be a little bit of a surprise to you. I don't think most people know this, but Willard Bay is actually used as a reservoir. It is used as a storage reservoir, and water is put into Willard Bay from the Weber and Ogden rivers every year and is pumped out for irrigation uses. So water is, of course, and that's no different than all of our reservoirs. So water is put into all these reservoirs based on the prior appropriation doctrine for water rights. And so I don't know exactly the water rights issues that are impacted on your canal, but what I'm guessing, if it's similar to some other areas of the state that I am very familiar with, that water in those canals is going to a water right user and is being used for its intended purposes, like irrigation, secondary use or ag, and so that's not being wasted. It's not just being put in into Willard Bay. If it is going into Willard Bay to be dissipated, it's because someone has a right to a portion of that water. I can tell you that Pineview Reservoir right now is about 55% of its capacity, which isn't great at all, but it sadly is better than many of our reservoirs in the state right now. It sounds like if conditions don't change, you're looking at an August end to the water season. We're looking at kind of a July 1st in my neck of the woods to the end of the water season, which is the worst that I can remember in my lifetime or my dad's lifetime. So not great, but that's the reason. I will make a call and follow up and make sure that that water is being used for its appropriate use and the water rights that are intended for. But join us and keep praying for rain. We need it so we can get past August with your reservoir.
Larry, thank you for the question. Just a couple of minutes before our next break here, I think we can get one more in. This is in relation to Dixie State in St. George. A committee there of faculty, community members, students recently voted to drop Dixie from whatever the new name might be. And Governor, we have on the line with us Jeff from St. George with a question about that. Jeff, go ahead.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for taking my call. Governor, we've had this issue going on for a long time. Almost all of the city councilmen, all of the cities, all of the mayors, and the county commission here and the county commission in Iron County have all voted unanimously that they wanted to keep the name Dixie at Dixie State University. The committee that was picked by the university's administration to hear this name change stacked the committee 13 members to 3.
Jeff, we're up against the clock here.
Changing the name.
Jeff, we're up against the clock here,
Yes.
a tight clock. Can you get to your question for the governor, please?
My question is it's not been fair here, Governor. The residents have not been involved in this, and we need your help. The name here means a lot to Southern Utah, and this administration has been from the very beginning trying to change the name without the input of the community, and we need your help. This is a big deal to the residents of Southern Utah and Utah. Everyone has been in favor of keeping the name except the administration. We need your help, Governor,
Thanks,
and
Jeff.
we ask you to step in and help us.
Thank you, Jeff. Governor, unfortunately, just a minute for you to respond here. Can you do it?
Well, this is a 10-minute answer in a minute. Look, in Utah, we've always said that in the West that whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. It turns out that changing the names of universities is worse than water fights, and certainly this is a big one. I remember when we changed the colors of Snow College, we added orange, and you would have thought that it was World War III over a color change. So look, I understand that this is important to the people. There are passionate views on both sides. I personally have always thought it was a strange name for a university. It's very confusing to people outside of the state, not for racial issues, just because it's a nickname from the South that is a nickname here now, a nickname based on a nickname. And if the university wants to grow, there needs to be a name that is more reflective of what it is the university does. But ultimately, that group does not make the decision. The people that make the decision is the legislature. And so if you're concerned, I would voice those concerns to the legislature, because they will have the final say in this in January.
All right, thank you.
Is that fast enough?
That was perfect. Perfect. And thanks again to Jeff for that question. Jeff, sorry to cut you short, but we do have to try and keep to a clock here as much as possible. Still time on the other side. 855-399-6800 is the toll-free number to join us here on tonight's Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox, which continues right after this.
Hi, inflation. Wednesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Vicky, how you doing? How's the knee?
It's coming along, doctor, but still some soreness.
Well, let's see. This soon after surgery, some pain is pretty normal.
I was hoping to get more painkillers. The first round worked great.
We're being very careful with those now. Prescription painkillers are opioids, same as heroin. It's easy to start taking them, not so easy to stop.
Last year in America, an average of 40 people died from opioid abuse every day. Long-term addiction has become America's newest health epidemic.
So no pills?
Vicky, you're doing great. So let's try these anti-inflammatories, plus your physical therapy. If the soreness doesn't continue to get better, give me a call.
For opioids, the smaller the dose prescribed and taken, the better. Because even a few prescription painkillers can sometimes go a long, wrong way. A message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons and the Orthopedic Trauma Association. Visit orthoinfo.org/prescription safety.
To protect her home and family in a disaster, Karen was willing to wade through water, mud, and insurance paperwork.
Yeah, I can do this.
You go, Karen! By simply understanding and updating what her insurance covers and doesn't cover now, she'll be better prepared no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Where news and talk comes first. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox. We literally have minutes left in the event tonight. We're going to try to get one more caller in. Appreciate everyone for joining us, especially the governor and our caller here, possibly the last question of the night, Christy from South Jordan, with a question, Governor, about critical race theory in schools. Christy, go ahead.
All right. Hey, Governor Cox, thanks for taking my call. I've noticed several other states are making decisions about the appropriateness, I guess, of critical race theory being taught in public schools. And I haven't heard much come out of your office about this. And I have kids in school, and this is an important issue in my mind. So just wondered your thoughts about it.
Thank you for the question. And I actually sent a letter to the legislature on critical race theory just a couple weeks ago. You can probably find it on my website at if you just go to utah.gov, governor.utah.gov. I get that wrong every time. It's a mouthful. Governor.utah.gov. You can go and read that. Critical race theory is one of these really interesting things that has come up. It's been around since the 70s. I not exactly sure why it's gotten so much attention lately, but I do know that people are really passionate about it. It's been really interesting. I've probably talked to 100 people about critical race theory, and I've asked them all what it means, and I've gotten 100 different answers as to what critical race theory is. What I can tell you is that it is not being taught in any Utah schools, nor should it. If you look, we've been working with the state school board, and that's the state school board is where those decisions are made. Under the Utah Constitution, they have the authority over what is being taught, the standards, and then curriculum is done at the local level with your local school district. And so if you go and look, just this past week, the state school board worked really hard on rules around this issue. We need to, and so we want to make sure that it is not being taught. Now, when there have been reports that it is being taught in school, in schools, the state superintendent has gone, the school boards have gone and investigated. They have found that they have not seen it being taught anywhere in our K through 12 schools. And so I would encourage you to look at those rules and the language that was just put out. If you still have concerns, then contact your state school board member and let them know. But I hope and I think that what you'll find is that it is very responsive. Bottom line to me is really important. We need to teach our kids the great things that have happened in our country and inspired our founders. And we should never discriminate or put one race above another, no matter what. I also believe that we need to be very honest about our history and the mistakes that we've made. That's how we learn from those mistakes, and that we teach those things as well. And so I don't think there's anything in the curriculum today that would argue otherwise. But if there is, please share it with your local school board. Let us know if you see something that you think is critical race theory that's being taught, and that will be investigated. But that's where we are. And I just want to give a shout out to our amazing school teachers and schools. This has been a really hard year on lots of people. To our students, there was a study that was done that showed that Utah had the best economy, the fewest deaths, and the most days in person education. Those three things combined, Utah led the nation. It was a really big deal. Really proud of our teachers for making that happen. And thanks to parents like you, Christy, who are making a difference and who care about their child's education. I love when parents get involved and you're making a difference. So thank you, Christy.
Thank you to Governor Cox, to the Utah Broadcasters Association, all of the partners involved here tonight. And most of all, thank you to our callers for this direct link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox event. Governor, a pleasure to have you here. We'll have to hold off on this question about the best ice cream from any college in the state. We'll get to that one maybe at the next event. A pleasure to have Governor Cox join us tonight, and all of you joining in, listening, calling, and more. And please join us for the next direct link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox. Thank you for tuning in this evening here via KVNU and the Utah Broadcasters Association.
You've been listening to Direct Link with Utah Governor Spencer Cox on stations throughout the state in partnership with the Utah Broadcasters Association. Tune in to this station every month for Direct Link.
Did you know you could do most of the rock, block, and paver projects around your home yourself? It's true, and Castellite and Logan can help. Their friendly, knowledgeable staff will help you on those projects and more. Why go anywhere else? You can find everything you need for rock, block, and paver projects under one roof at very competitive prices. Right here at Castellite and Logan. For brick, block, rock, paver, and tile, go where the pros go. Online at Castellite.com.
The dominant voice in conservative talk radio for over 3 decades.
Rush Limbaugh. Let me tell you who we conservatives are. We believe that person can be the best he or she wants to be if certain things are just removed from their path, like onerous taxes, regulations, and too much government. We are all endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness.
We remember the cornerstone of conservative talk, Rush Limbaugh.
When it's happening in Washington, when it's happening on Wall Street.
That's the reason why we're going to continue, because I believe there is a cause here.
News Talk KVNU.